Hey everybody, Melanie Atkinson here, Realtor with Smith & Associates in beautiful Tampa Bay, Florida. And today I'm going to talk with a realtor from Manhattan. I want to talk New York real estate versus Tampa real estate and see where it goes. Take a listen. Hey everybody, I'm here with Michael Holt with the Holt team at Halstead Real Estate in Manhattan. Thank you so much for joining us today, Michael. How are you today?
Hey, I'm well, and yourself?
Doing well. Michael and I met at the leading real estate companies of the world conference several weeks ago in Las Vegas. We didn't really talk too much. He was telling us about a project that he has developing in Sarasota, Florida. But this gave me a really good opportunity to connect and ask him a couple questions. New York and Tampa, we kind of trade residences every once in a while, or residents every once in a while. So I'm curious about Manhattan real estate, so that's why we're going to talk today.
That sounds good to me. Where shall we start?
Oh, okay. Well, as a Floridian, as a real estate agent in Florida and Tampa specifically, I don't really know anything about Manhattan real estate. I think I look at it like the general public does, like everything's super expensive. You have $10 million townhouses and everything. What is it really like? What's the truth of Manhattan real estate?
The truth of Manhattan real estate. Well, you're so far you're pretty accurate, and the prices are obviously amongst the highest in the globe. Your average price, let's just say, or your median sales price, the number that occurs the most, those amount of sales that are consistently hitting. So you know that that's a good gauge. That is around $1.1 million. Now, the
Wow.
reason why I like to say the median versus the average is because of this. New York, sometimes you'll see like these crazy headlines of a monstrous sale, just an obscene price. So what happens is that makes the average appear a lot higher than what really majority of the apartments are trading at. And a perfect example is the apartment that had sold recently for, it was a record price. It was $240 million for one apartment. Yeah,
Wow.
and that, as you can see, would definitely skew things and make the average apartment just seem like it's a lot more than what it really is. So you're really looking
Right.
at 1.1 million is your bread and butter
Is
there.
your median. Okay. So the
Hmm.
median price in the Tampa Bay area is in between that 260, $270,000 range. So we're talking about really different prices here.
Yes.
Maybe that explains why so many New Yorkers come down here.
Yes, and because of tax reasons as well. That's a whole nother animal too.
That's definitely true. We'll definitely touch on that. So for a regular person who, wanted something that's maybe below the median, what
Mhm.
can they expect to get for, $500,000? Is there even anything available?
It's actually a good number that you say 500,000 because I would say that is a great entry price. I would say that's a good like first time home buyer price because the thing is in New York is you have two different building structures, and that is what's absolutely different between here, like in New York, also to Florida, is the fact that one building you don't just have condos, you also have a building type called co-op buildings or cooperative buildings, and they're
Hmm.
different from condos for a number of reasons, and a huge reason is that the building itself is owned by a corporation. Okay. And when you buy an apartment in that building, you're given a proprietary lease for your ownership. But really, what you're getting is an amount of shares in that corporation that owns the building. Okay.
Okay.
So it's taxed differently. It's also, there's different liability structures attached to it because if somebody were to stop paying their maintenance or default on their loan or their mortgage, or it has an effect in the entire building versus a separate deeded condo. So without getting too technical on you, there are two building structures, and co-op and condo. Now co-ops have financial restrictions, so it's not just a matter of going to a bank getting approved for a loan. In Florida, I know you can leverage a lot of different things, especially if it's your first time, if it's your first residence or your primary residence that you're living in, you can finance, put down 3, 5%,
Yep.
10%. In New York, especially co-ops, you'll have to put down 20, 25, sometimes 50% of the purchase price. And it's not
Wow.
just that. They want to see you have a debt to income ratio of a certain amount. They want to know you'll have post-closing liquidity of a certain amount. it really you do a lot of work on the front end as a real estate agent when you're working with clients. But it's interesting because someone that's buying their first apartment, it's like, okay, I've been saving up money for so long, or maybe I'm younger and I've just started, finally getting really high income and I've yet to save up a certain amount of cash. That has a huge effect on these requirements. And so a $500,000 purchase is going to get you really around the studio in Manhattan. Sometimes you can find one bedrooms. I mean, you definitely find a larger one bedroom with like a doorman and amenities for around 700, 750,000, a separate dining room or den maybe. Obviously some neighborhoods are less prices than others, but yeah, that's what you can expect.
Wow. I mean, a night and day difference from here in Florida and there. I mean, obviously, I assume that that was the case, that everything is more expensive in New York. Um, so I know that you have been to portions of Tampa. I was going to ask you, how do you think Tampa compares to New York for anyone who's thinking about, trading in the expensive real estate and coming down here? Why do you think New Yorkers would like this part of Tampa? What you
Well,
know about it, and then I'll add some more.
yeah, there you go. That's what's interesting is we have kind of two different perspectives, but also a lot of things that we can relate on. And with New Yorkers, I can tell you that what's interesting about the market right now, currently in 2020, and it has been really this way for the past few years. New York has been a buyer's market, and the thing is every single real estate market has its. I mean, there's the nationwide, national real estate market. Then there's also you have your local submarkets and within your cities, but everybody has their own real estate cycle and where they're at in that real estate cycle. Now, obviously, the economy and different things nationally can affect certain parameters of each local place, but in New York right now we are in a buyer's market and most of the country is in a seller's market. That
Right.
means it favors the buyers. There's more inventory right now, and that's what happened in New York is we've had years of buildup of just inventory, so it was due to come in the buyer's favor. But we also had some recent local tax changes as well, so it was kind of like a double whammy. So right now in New York, there's a couple things. I mean, right now, sure, it's a good time to buy. It's a good time if you were a seller and you wanted to get that bigger space. And so they're selling their smaller apartments and buying bigger ones. But at the same time, the tax laws have gotten worse up there. And so you're seeing a huge influx of people just selling their apartments there, getting smaller ones, or at least buying something in Florida. And Florida, we always joke, is the other borough of New York because so many of New Yorkers live down here. And Tampa honestly just relates to a lot of New Yorkers if they're looking on the West Coast kind of per se of Florida, because a lot go to like South Florida, Miami, East Coast, Lauderdale areas. But Tampa is also like as far as this side of the state goes in Florida, you've got that city feel, and that's what New Yorkers and people generally they like to relate to the where they're spending most of their time is they want something where they can have interactions or similar environment that they currently live in. And Tampa, I feel, gives that for them. You have that city vibe, and I think they resonate well with that.
Yeah, I agree. And Tampa itself is in the middle of a growth period. I'm not sure how much research you've seen on Water Street and the new development that's going on in downtown Tampa specifically. And then we also have downtown St. Pete just on the other side of the bay. So we actually have two different downtown areas, obviously not to the scale of New York or Chicago or anything like that. But that might actually be a good thing for people. So one of the things that people don't like about Tampa is the fact that there is really no mass transit. You really do need a car here to get around. Are New Yorkers and specifically people that come from Manhattan, are they prepared for a car lifestyle, or are they going to come down here and be upset that they're in traffic?
Well, traffic usually makes everybody a little unsettled, but then again, we have a lot of it up there too. But you're right. I mean, the thing is, it's completely different. I'm from Florida originally, and I've been in New York now almost 10 years. I haven't owned a car in nearly 10 years. It was a little strange at first, but I can tell you, yeah, I love being able to walk out my door wherever I'm going, hop on a city bike if I need to. It's very interesting. But at the same time, I do miss driving a car at times. I feel for New Yorkers, it's a good change. Traffic is what it is, and in New York, for those that do drive, I mean, it's quite incredible what parking garages can go for a month. I mean, the bare
Right.
minimum you're looking at is 300, usually around five. It can go up higher than that, and they do sell parking spaces as well, which can go anywhere from 80 grand to millions of dollars for a parking spot. It's insane.
It's
Uh,
just a totally different world. It's so crazy to hear those stories. I mean, here we have parking spots everywhere. They're free.
Yeah, yeah, for the most part, yes. But no, it's something that just comes along with the territory, and I think it's kind of refreshing in a way for New Yorkers is to kind of, you know, drive, for a little
Yeah.
bit because they usually
I'm
don't get to
sure it
do it very.
is. Well, if you could remind all of them to please drive safely when they come and visit, because we do tend to have a lot of people from a lot of different areas that don't necessarily drive all the time. So please use the right lanes and not the left lanes if you're going to go slow. That's on behalf of all of us Floridians down here.
Hey, listen,
um,
I'm glad you're preaching that message. I feel like if Florida couldn't hear that it had enough, or just anywhere, but New Yorkers were kind of known for our. We can be a little bit on the abrasive or aggressive side at times, and
I've
I
heard the
think
rumors.
because people when they come visit, like, oh, the New Yorkers are just so rude, and we could just be a little straight to the point sometimes, a little blunt, but yeah, I think that the biggest time is when they're. It's funny because everyone always talks about the energy and the pulse of New York, and when you go there, you feel it when you're walking around, not just Times Square because it's just a
Yeah.
lot of tourist people, it's a lot of people, but when you're walking around rush hour in New York, like towards like when work's about to start or end, even people that like for me, I'll try and get an hour head start if I can, head home around 4 o'clock if I have that luxury. But it's because everybody on the street is like just racing home from work or to work, and they're the locals. And so when you're a tourist, you're like, holy cow. And you'll feel the same rules apply to walking as they do driving down here. When you're walking in New York, yeah, the slower people walk on the right and the ones who are passing on the left. It sounds
Yeah.
ridiculous, but you'll
No.
notice next time you're there.
I don't think everybody got that memo, just like they didn't get that memo when it comes to driving down here. Yeah, I've noticed because tourists, they're looking around, they're trying to figure out where they're going, so they're in the way, and everyone's just walking past them on a mission to get home. I assume that living in New York is similar to living in parts of Florida where there's a lot of tourists. You're constantly surrounded by people who are not familiar with the ways of the world in that particular city. So we in Florida are used to it as well. So we're very tolerant of it. And everyone comes from a different place in Florida. New Yorkers, I have never found in general to be abrasive. Obviously, there's abrasive ones in every city, but I've always found New Yorkers to be pretty nice people. So I guess why did you move to New York? Why do you want to live in Manhattan right now? I mean, as you can all see, it's March of 2020. That's why we're doing this via Skype. So living in Manhattan right now is not really the best thing. But why did you want to live in Manhattan, other
Well,
than right now?
there's certainly pros and cons. I will say when I had moved up here originally, I mean, I had been back and forth. My mother was originally born in the Bronx, and but for me, my family's also in real estate in Florida. So for not in Tampa though, I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, I can always go back to Florida, get involved in real estate. And at the time, I had been back and forth to New York, and I just wanted to just explore, just to live and to travel and just kind of have my own story. And I knew I could fall back on Florida. And I just love the city. I love the city for so many reasons. And it was really tough, I have to say, because it's an extremely competitive market up there. Or you're dealing with some of the biggest and baddest brokers in the industry and within the country. I mean, they're really, really good at what they do. But at the same time, as real estate is very much a relationship type business. And when you go in any area and you don't have any relationships, that's always tough. So it took a little bit to get the career going. And then even when you're doing like lead generation services, up there, you're dealing with some very you're bidding against companies, you're bidding against big power brokers that are putting a crazy amount of money into those lead generation platforms and absorbing more of those market shares. So when you're a newer
Right.
agent, you don't have as much as a budget, you don't have the relationships. It's like you're getting barely any leads and they're very expensive. And so it's hard to build your career that way. So for me, it took some time. I was shadowing a really top broker there, and you start living off the breadcrumbs until you kind of grow your own business. And now it's been 10 years. I have my own team and a lot of success. So,
Excellent.
but I do love it up there. My family, they're all in Sarasota, as you know, and they're constantly wanting me to move down here and do real estate here. But it's in my blood now. I love it. I love it there. So
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make sure we touched on all the good things because New York is kind of the epicenter of at least the United States, maybe not the world. So I love visiting. I just haven't been there in a while, so I need to come back up there. You just touched on Sarasota. So you have started working in some sort in development, and you are developing a project down in Sarasota. So tell me about that project. I'm excited to learn about it. Sarasota isn't necessarily my market, but it's very close, and I can certainly go down there for this particular building. So tell me about it.
well, first of all, you should definitely come visit regardless. Sarasota is just one of those cities that you just have to, and also New Yorkers are starting to kind of gravitate to as well, which I find very interesting because, as we were mentioning earlier about the relations between New York and Tampa, it's always been New Yorkers have always kind of flocked to the East Coast, and the West Coast of Florida has also had like Midwesterners. So it's interesting to see. And for all the same reasons, like with Sarasota now, the city's starting to grow in the downtown core. It's been a big real estate boom. But what I like about Sarasota as well is they're very cultured in the sense that they have a lot going on within the arts and theater, comedy shows. There's just more to do, and I just feel that kind of gravitates to New Yorkers. So they can relate to that. So my project is actually in the downtown core, and it's a luxury condominium building that we're constructing from the ground up, which
Okay.
means complete raw land at the moment, and we're going to build it up from there. Our project is a little bit different than what's a lot different than your typical type of building because what we decided to do is we decided to make a building that is very private, very boutique. So there's only 5 units. Okay, there's three
That
standard
doesn't give
units.
me very many to sell.
No, it doesn't. No, so it's very the opportunity is limited. I will say that. But what's interesting about the units is even the standard residences we call the Beacon Standard. The name of the building we decided to name the Beacon because when you see a rendering and a picture of it, there is a tower in there. We relate that to being a beacon to point people home to kind of the Beacon in Sarasota, and that tower has a private pool. It's an
Okay.
optional pool that's included in the price, but every single residence has that pool. So you have that maximum privacy with a ability to be able to use it
I'm
as
sorry. Are you saying pool?
pool, like a
Uh,
swimming pool.
okay, so
Yeah,
each person can have their own pool
in their unit. Yes,
in their unit.
in their unit.
Is it
So
outside or inside?
it is outside, but here's the thing: you have two access points. One is off the elevator landing, so it's a
Okay.
private elevator entry, and which is great because when you have it serviced, when you have it maintained, the pool guy can enter right in from the elevator entry versus having to come inside your unit and carry all whatever equipment that he needs. The other
It's not
access point.
typical to have a pool guy inside your condo unit, that's for sure.
Right. Well, there's only been so many buildings in the entire world that have had a private pool inside the unit, and especially for every unit, there's only a small handful. Now, the other access point is, of course, on the outdoors. So if you're laying out, getting sun, and you want to have a dip, it's right there. So we built it in a manner that you have it located in that tower. Okay, so it's almost like a jacuzzi feel, and you're just hanging out, and you can literally be talking, having a glass of wine in your pool, and overlooking the beautiful view. We also have a section where it's like a little rectangle, and people want to put like those. I forget what they're called, but they're like the streams, so you can exercise and swim against the
Oh,
current.
yes. Hmm.
So that's kind of that's pretty neat. And we find a lot of people that are surprised that it's actually included in the price. So that's a really unique feature. But every unit is 12-foot ceilings, full floor, so you have complete privacy. They resemble that feel of a penthouse, which is really neat. And so just for interior, you're looking about 3,700 square feet. It's
Okay.
huge. size
Huge.
of a house. It's like
All on one
in the
floor.
sky. Yeah. And that's just the interior, and you have the exterior as well. So you've got a significant amount of space there. The pricing starts at 1,850,000 and goes up
Okay.
from there. Now, the other two units are penthouse units, and we've released one to the market. It is our top floor penthouse. That penthouse is listed at 5 million. It is huge. It is about 8,500 square feet. You've got two full floors is what it encompasses, plus the rooftop. But that is the general gist of the project. And one big question, as you would probably think of it, as a realtor, but a lot of people don't initially, is parking. When you have a small building, in any building, parking is always a challenge, but we've came up with a manner to have two spaces per unit. So that's been a nice thing to add.
Yeah, of course. Because down here you need cars.
Yes, and one space just isn't enough.
No,
Everybody
one
you've got.
space is not enough. And for any of you out here that are watching that are saying to themselves, "Well, I have four cars and one of mine is luxury." I know they have garage condos in Sarasota too. I think fairly close to the downtown area. I was talking to a friend of mine about a project down there for garage condos for people who have more. So, what are you looking out on? So you said it's in downtown Sarasota. I am familiar with Sarasota. What's the view?
So you have a combination of city views, and also you have what we call peekaboo water views. That's a big realtor
Peekaboo
term.
water views.
Yeah, so you're seeing, I love it too. I laughed the first time I heard it, but it's true because you have really neat views of the bay and you're facing south. So you get great light, sure, but at the same time, you're seeing sailboats. You're seeing all these boats that kind of like pass throughout the horizon in the city, and it's not that. What's interesting is, so right near our project is the Embassy Suites Hotel, and what's interesting is our sales office is right nearby as well. But when you know how it is when you're selling a off of renderings, when you're in a sales office and you're looking at screens and pictures, there's only so much someone can visualize. We have been blessed enough where the hotel, the Embassy Suites, that's a few lots over to us, on their eighth floor, they have a restaurant and lounge. And in that restaurant and lounge, they have what's equivalent to about our fifth floor views.
Hmm.
And that way, someone can walk in there and have an idea of what that elevation looks like, and they can see and feel it. And it's quite astonishing. Personally, one of my favorite views is the city view at night. I guess I'm a little biased coming from New York, but I've been to there's some really cool rooftop bars now downtown in Sarasota, and they're the most trendiest things at night because everybody loves the view. And that's one thing that we're proud to have as well. And if you're thinking and you're hearing me speak about, well, how is their eighth floor equivalent to their fifth floor, right?
That was my
So,
question. Yep.
yeah, so the interesting thing is that there's no designation to how high we can build ceiling heights in Sarasota for our buildings. So what we did for our garage is we made the ceiling heights approximately 30 feet. So when you pull in your garage, you're like, oh my gosh, it's just breathtaking, just a garage, because you have this huge, 30 ceilings is massive, okay?
That is massive. Yeah, that's like three stories.
It's huge. And so you have that luxury feel, but also it pushes now the building up 30 feet. So your first floor clears the buildings right in front of it. So you don't have anybody looking inside of your apartment. Your first entry level condo is above that horizon. So, and then with every condo being 12 foot, your elevations are much higher. So that's why the NBC Suites, on the eighth floor where the restaurant is equivalent to about our
Fifth
fifth.
floor.
So it gives you an idea.
Yeah, Smith and Associates, the brokerage I work for here, we represent most of the condo towers that are being currently constructed here, and we do a lot of drone shots so people can see from just about every other floor, because the views are so important to people. And if you're trying to sell a view of any sort and they can't visualize it before you start going vertical, it gets really hard to sell anything. So that was great that they gave you that option. Well, it sounds fascinating. We're going to put links up for your website. I think we've been showing the website too as we've been talking, hopefully. Um, And obviously, if you have any questions, if you're out there watching this, you have any questions, give Michael a call, and he can relay them down to me if he's in New York or whatever. Um, so that's very exciting. Hopefully, it all goes well. You only have 5 to sell. I think one of the questions as a real estate agent that I think of with 5 units is the cost, the shared cost of maintaining that building. Are the condo association fees anything that you're concerned about? I mean, obviously, if you can afford that price, people usually are okay with condo association fees being pretty high. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, actually, they're pretty comparable within the market. The first thing that you have to think of is like, well, the penthouses they're going to be paying more, and with those units are trading at $5 and $4.5 million, I mean, and have twice the amount of square footage as the standards, they're going to obviously have to pay more. But
Of
everything
course.
is very comparable within the market. And another thing is that in Florida that we've really found that majority of the building owners, I mean, look, as a condominium association, you can always, vote and choose and certain amenities, things you want to add and what you want to do, because obviously your common charges, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for, if you have a doorman or concierge, you're paying for that staff's salary. You're paying for the upkeep of the, amenity areas, where if it's a dog washing station or a gym or both or whatever. So the thing is, and with our building, we don't have a doorman that's sitting there and working, just because we don't feel the cost would really we don't feel the juice would be worth the squeeze. I mean, the thing is when you only have that many units and majority of those people probably won't live there full time, it doesn't make sense for everyone to have to pay for that, and especially for a small building. So that's one way to keep our costs down, is really just choosing, to eliminate some of the things that people really don't need or want, necessarily to pay for, that they could always choose to have in the future.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great thing because you're right. With only 5 units, there's really no reason why anyone wouldn't that you would want that extra cost of having full-time staff there all the time. Um,
So, negotiated. One thing I want to add is, for example, the pools, right? We negotiated with one company to give us a really good rate on maintaining the pools, because now they have a larger account, and also a lovely project and lovely apartments for their portfolio. So that was also going to be, it's also included in the maintenance price, and we were able to get them a better price than they were to go out and if they were to get it by themselves. But yeah, any more information, let me know.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I'm very excited to learn more about it. Okay, so let's see. I think that was about all that I wanted to cover. Michael here, we started talking in Las Vegas because we were talking about video and YouTube channels and stuff like that. So he does have a YouTube channel. What is it called?
Okay, so full disclosure here, my YouTube channel, that is something that I, as today, like have just started. Like, I'm big video, I do it on Facebook and Instagram. I was actually interviewed at that conference about some video ideas. And I just was like, man, I've only been using YouTube to kind of host my things. And then,
Right.
so as of right now, I have my channel that we'll have to put like a link for. But one thing that I have is a playlist there called A Minute with Michael, and that is my video series where anyone can ask me any real estate question and I answer it under a minute. And some of those can be applied to real estate markets, not just in New York, because they have to do with negotiation and selling, but some of them are more geared to New York. Like, for example, I explained a little bit about that cooperative building I was telling you earlier
Right.
about. So
You took
that
more than a minute, just for the record.
explaining it to you, absolutely. I mean, listen, I those videos, it's a challenge. My slogan is A Minute with Michael, and I always say that I'll answer it in a minute or two.
Yes. I guess
Yes,
I could do a minute with Melanie too, since we both have names that start with M.
yeah, there you go.
I tend to be a little bit more wordy than a minute, so I don't know if I could possibly do that. I think when I looked the other day, you had 0 subscribers. So
Yes.
anyone who's out there who has enjoyed watching Michael today, if you could go to his channel, which isn't Michael Holt.
believe it's Michael Holt.
Yeah,
It's this
we'll put a
Michael
link.
Holt's New York. One of the thing. We'll put a link.
We'll put
Yeah.
a link in there for people to look, but you have to start doing some more content. We're gonna put his Instagram and Facebook links as well in the about section. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. It's been super interesting to chat with you. I'm really glad that I live in Florida where I don't have a median price of $1.1 million, but it sounds like it's super fun to be an agent in Manhattan. So for everybody out there that's watched, if you enjoyed this video, take a look at one of my other videos. I have a great one that I just put out a couple days ago, where I talked to a lender friend of mine about the current mortgage interest rates and things like that. So thank you everybody for joining us. With love, Melanie.